First of all, I really want to thank both Vivi and Moonhee. Those were outstanding presentations, and Jan-Erik, you really gave a wonderful description on how to access all the terminology for the affiliate and members here in the United States using terminology. And Moonhee, this is probably the best presentation I've seen on answering the burning question, what is CMT, and what's it going to look like, what does it contain, when is it going to be available. So we really appreciate that. Thanks for making the effort to come here and share that with us. Jan-Erik, some closing comments and questions?
Of course, I'm thanking the speakers as well, and opening the floor basically for questions. I'd also like to introduce the officers of IHTSDO who are present. Ken Speckman, Chief Terminologist, Joan Gutai, Chief Technical Officer, Jane Miller, Chief Quality Officer, and Sue Lam, Implementation Officer. So the questions, if you think they're of a general nature that will interest other people in the hall, please pose them now to the panel of people that just spoke. If you have more specific things that you really want to talk about, the officers will remain in the room after this session has ended, and you can talk to them in more detail on any burning questions you may have. So, the floor is open. Yes?
Could you elaborate any on the relationship between the MetaMap and the CMT?
When you mentioned MetaMap, can you expand on that?
Using the right term,
Do you mean the Metathesaurus?
not the Metathesaurus. Have to look up.
It's a computational linguistics set of...
Lisa?
Yeah, it's a parsing algorithm that you can use to come up with text terms that involves Metathesaurus.
So is the question, does CMT use MetaMap?
What is the relationship? Are they two
Oh.
alternatives for the same thing? Or does one augment or do fulfill a function the other doesn't?
We actually don't use MetaMap. So for when we talk about mappings, it's really not, we don't want to map anymore, but instead start from the concept and extend it with additional descriptions as needed. Does that answer your question?
I think at this point.
I have a small follow-up question. The convergent medical terminology that is used by KB, how much of it actually finds its way into the actual SOAP note?
Actual SOAP note?
Objective assessment plan,
Right.
the narrative that Dr. enters. How much of the convergent medical terminology actually finds its way there?
Well,
in KB?
right. The problems will find its way there. Let's see, the assessment section will be notes, so it's not really a discrete terms. Let's see. So it will find itself into SOAP notes only if they're picking as discrete terminology elements. If it's a text note, then it won't make it in there.
Just broadening that question a little bit beyond the SOAP noting, could you just enumerate or identify kind of within the system utilized by Kaiser Permanente where the CMT is used? I think you're mentioning some of the areas where it's called out in a note. Are there other functions or applications where that's used?
Right. So CMT terminology makes itself it's shown in the KP Health Connect depending on the EPIC structure. So EPIC has sort of list of terms that support each functions, such as order entry. So order entry, you'll have to select the procedures that you will order, and that list of procedure terms come from CMT. Problem list, the list of problem list terms that the physician select comes from CMT. The list of encounter diagnoses that physicians select comes from CMT. Chief complaints comes from CMT. The lab component names that display within your results review comes from CMT. What else? Specimen sites or that you pick in, performing the order entry comes from CMT. So many of the clinical terminology within the KP Health Connect come from CMT.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Good question.
And it works across all the regions.
And yes, it is standardized across all the regions within the enterprise.
So at this point, you can't compare apples to apples.
Exactly.
On a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a question that's kind of related to Joe's question before. There's obviously been a big vacuum in coming up with the codes and the standards for how we're going to string the codes together into a format. And you guys did some great work there, and I'm excited to see it. But there's another big vacuum right behind that in having code that will actually take what we have, which is narrative text, and parse through it and do all the computational linguistics, or I guess the first guess from the the request from a medical terminology genie would be able to recognize voice from audio. But there's all these different university projects out there that do little bits and pieces of all the exotic computational linguistics necessary to actually take what we've got and then turn it into codes. What I was hoping is there'd be some agenda developing where people could get together and share work that they've done, advice, etc. Because, this is a non-trivial problem to turn, to get codes from what we've actually got. And so, if anybody's interested in talking about that, I know I am. After the show, maybe we could gather in a corner and share some experience there. But I was wondering, is there any opportunity that KP might consider donating some of the code outside of the tool and the codes themselves, but donating some of the code that they actually had to build to produce their own solution?
You mean related to natural language processing?
Yeah.
That's not part of the CMT donation, by the way. This is, we do have regions that's been dabbling in natural language processing, and I'm not sure if they're willing to donate that kind of code yet. Perhaps later.
Lisa?
I think it's also worked in the UK development that as well.
I missed your comment.
Oh, I think there's also some work with the NHS in the UK going on in natural language processing.
And also,
Well, 15 different universities have stuff, but it's not very coherent.
the National Library of Medicine is also involved in that as well. Lisa Lang, I work with the National Library of Medicine. We've got, through our research wing, the Listerville Center for Biomedical Informatics, they've been working for quite some time on issues related to natural language processing. In some ways, what this represents is a wonderful opportunity to get in the middle. Basically, with the KP use case is a group of clinicians who have over 15 years developed a comfort level with certain kinds of basic ways of expressing a particular problem or diagnosis or observation, and then linking it behind to some kind of standardized code. And the idea would be through the resources that the UMLS provides, through the expanded capacity of the browsers that we're going to have, that we have and are expanding within the UTS, it will be possible for others to come and see what the CMT provides, decide whether or not they like it. If they've got another coherent system, we will entertain ways to make that available for sharing, so that you can begin to have some convergence at the level of what the physician is using, and over time, we will begin to get some standardization there as well. The natural language processing, obviously, we've got to continue to develop at the same time. So I hope that helps.
Yes.
Hi, Moon. That was a great presentation, and I really want to compliment you on organizationally taking on the SNOMED to ICD-10 mapping work that you're doing. I've been, in my organization, I've been expecting that, knowing that there's the IHTSDO effort to ICDM, or to ICD, and knowing that the NLM has a commitment to ICD-10-CM, I've been, in my mind, thinking that we really just want one reimbursable map. We don't want every organization to have their maps. And so I've kind of stepped back from engaging in that work. And I see now that it's going to take all of us doing that work and harmonizing the maps together with the NLM. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
And one side comment is that NLM is very interested to see the maps that is part of the CMT, so that we can see whether or not there's a useful way to leverage that for the mapping project that we're working on.
Well, I think the workbench is one way also to perhaps collaborate and realize the promise of the workbench. That this would be a great test of the promise of the workbench and the collaborative features of the workbench.
Yes,
and I really appreciate the leadership NLM has provided to make CollabNet space available and to promote that kind of collaboration.
Just a real quick question on clarity. I'm kind of new to this, and I wanted to ask. I thought I had heard that SNOMED CT was mapped to ICD. I presumed ICD-10-CM. I'm wondering if you could clarify for me. When I hear things like that, does that mean SNOMED might be mapped to WHO's version of ICD-10, but maybe not the U.S. version of ICD-10-CM, or where are you mentioned in your presentation?
I'll let you handle that one.
You mentioned Dr. Campbell is working on some things, and I'm just trying to understand where we are. What's the state of mapping there?
The short, direct answer is there is no official map that exists, period.
SNOMED CT to ICD-10-CM.
Correct.
Okay.
However, as I said, the IHTSDO is working on a map that is under the direction of Jim Campbell that is directly from SNOMED to ICD-10. And that is a map that is intended to be useful to all the members of the IHTSDO. That map will likely inform, and the processes and the procedures that are being developed to create that map are informing the project that NLM is doing to create the ICD-10-CM map. And we're also looking at the work we already did with a draft rules-based map that goes from SNOMED to ICD-9-CM. That map is actually available on the NLM website now. There's about 5,000 mappings in that.
And just one further clarification, and I think it's what you're getting into right now. The work that Dr. Campbell is doing is related to a subset of these 5,000 problem terms, or a full kind of mapping SNOMED to ICD-10?
The work that is being done by the IHTSDO on the 10-CM map, they're looking at it from two directions. On the SNOMED CT side, I believe they're basing it on the core problem list, which is about 5,000 terms. Right. And on the other side, they've taken similar usage data from the countries that are already using 10 and pulling that together so that they can make sure that on both sides, it's a, rather than trying to do the whole thing at once, they're using the useful subsets that represent the highest use terms on either side. And that's their focus.
Maybe a good moment for Jane Miller to comment on the she's actually doing that project.
Dr. Campbell, as you say, is leading the work at the IHTSDO. It is only a map to ICD-10, not to 10-CM, in two phases. The first phase is 9,600 concepts, as you just said, but it has got, as its reference, maps from other countries such as the UK who've already done a map to ICD-10. So, but that work is going on as we speak.
I see.